Is section 1.1. We're talking about the coordinate plane. We're going to talk about distance and midpoint. You guys should be familiar with the coordinate plane. Okay, we have an x-axis, which is the horizontal one. All right, here's my x-axis. My y-axis is the vertical one. We have 4 quadrants. We start in the top left-hand corner. This is quadrant 1, and it goes around in a C, 1, 2, 3, 4, counterclockwise. You guys should also know, if I tell you that something is in the second quadrant or the fourth quadrant, you should know the signs of the x and y. So right here, we always start at the origin. In the first quadrant, if I told you there was a point in the first quadrant, in order to get to that point, I would have to go to the right. You go x first, and then up. So the point, any point in the first quadrant is going to be a positive x value and a positive y value. Think about if we go right or up, the value is positive. If we go left or down, then the value is what? Negative. Talk to me. Okay. So if I have a point.
Also, Miss Porter.
All right, so guys, if we're in the second quadrant, from the origin, I go left, which would be negative, and then I go up, which would be positive. So in any point in the second quadrant, you would have a negative x value and a positive y value. You guys with me? All right, and then if I'm in the third quadrant, I start from the origin and I go left, which is negative, and then I would go down. So my x and y values in the third quadrant would be negative, negative. And then in the fourth quadrant, from the origin, I go right, which is positive, and then down, which is negative. Whoops. So my x value would be positive, my y value would be negative. But it's important that you guys know that. All right, if you have a point that lies on an axis, on the x-axis or on the y-axis, it's not assigned a specific quadrant. So you wouldn't say that that's in a quadrant. But if they ask you where a specific point is, which quadrant, you need to know from the origin, you go left and right first, then up and down. Questions? All right, we're going to talk about the distance formula here. The distance formula you guys have seen before. It is derived. It's from our Pythagorean theorem. So I know that this doesn't make a lot of sense to you, which is perfectly fine. You guys don't need to memorize this or anything, but you do need to know the distance formula itself, which is right here. All right, you guys need to know that you're going to take your x's and you're going to subtract them. You're going to take your y's and subtract them. Then you square them independently and then add them together. Now, we're going to work through some problems. And I want you guys to see, when we had slope, right? If we were finding the slope of a line, and I had 2 points. I had 1, 2, and negative 3, 5. X and Y. Does order matter when you're in slope? Like if I say 2 minus 5 on top, can I say negative 3 minus 1, or do I have to say 1 minus negative 3? I would have, if I start with 2 on the top, then I have to start with 1 on the bottom, okay? That is not the case when we have distance, and I want you guys to see that. And the reason why, if I say 1 minus 3, I get negative 2. If I say 3 minus 1, I get positive 2. Those are 2 totally different numbers, correct? But in the distance formula, we square it. So when I square negative 2, I get 4. When I square positive 2, I get 4. So don't get concerned, don't get consumed with, I have to put the right x first. You don't have to. Just make sure you keep your x's in one parenthesis and your y in the other. Let's do some problems here. All right? You're going to have a question like this on your web assign. And this is exactly how I want it answered, so make sure you're paying attention to what we're going to do. I'm going to draw a quick little picture here. I have the point P at 1, negative 2. And then I have Q at 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so like something like that. And then I have point A, which is at 5, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. So somewhere like there. They're asking you which line or which point is closer to our A. Well, when you're trying to figure out how far something is away, you use the distance formula. So what you're going to do in this case is do the distance formula twice. You're going to do the distance from P to A, and then the distance from Q to A, and you're going to compare them. So this is how I would want you to write it. I want you to write the 2 points that you're looking at, so 1, -2, right? And A, which is 5, 3. I think you should write your points like this every single time you do a distance problem, because you can see where your x's are and where your y's are. Now when we go to do distance, it's our x's squared plus our y's squared, and I have to subtract in each parenthesis. It does not matter the order. You can either say 1 minus 5, or you can say 5 minus 1. In the second parenthesis, I'm just going to say -2 minus 3. You could have done 3 minus -2. It does not matter. What you need to pay attention to is when you get to this point and you are squaring each parenthesis, you will get a positive number. If you forget and you get a negative, you're going to get your answer completely wrong. So make sure you're paying attention to that. If I have 1 minus 5, what does that give me? -4 squared. Plus 2 minus -3 gives me -5 squared. You guys with me? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So as I simplify, -4 squared is 16, plus -5 squared is 25. And what does that equal? 16 plus 25. Yeah, so I have the square root of 41. All right, so the distance from P to A is the square root of 41. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing, but I'm going to find the distance from Q, which is 8, 9, to A, which is 5, 3. So again, set your formula up. You have your x's, you're going to subtract and square them. Your y's that you subtract and square them, and then you add in the middle. Order does not matter, just keep your x's together. So I'm just going to write 8 minus 5 squared plus 9 minus 3 squared. Well, what's 8 minus 5?
3.
3. So 3 squared, whoops. Plus, what's 9 minus 3? 6 squared. So 3 squared is 9 plus 36 gives me what? What's 9 plus 36?
45.
What do you notice? What can you deduce from this? What can you tell me?
Give me square root of 9, the square root of...
Okay, you could break that down, but you don't have to in a question like this because you're answering the question, which one's closer? So what point is closer to point A? Is it P or Q? Yep.
Q.
P is closer to point A. And I know that because the square root of 41 is smaller than the square root of 45. Now, in order for you guys to do this question, in order for you to arrive at this answer, you had to do all of that work. So on WebAssign tonight, when they say which point's closer, and you just tell me P, if you don't show me the whole distance formula and both of them and all that stuff, you guys aren't getting credit for it. So make sure you're on top of that. If you're finding which, hold on, if you're finding which point is closer, I need you guys to actually show me the work. Yes, ma'am.
On like your work, I see where you put like your Q answer and your A answer, but what did you get for P?
Because the question was,
I just got confused
which one's
where,
closer?
Like, because now I see where P is because we're looking to see which one's closer.
Correct.
But for A, you have 5 to the 5 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what did we do? Like A, did it just give us the answer for A already? 5, 3.
It gave us the point. Look up here. It tells you where point A is, and it tells you where point P is, and it tells you where point Q is.
Okay, but like, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly. I'm probably not. But like, do we have to solve for A just to even?
Yes, and it says find the distance and to leave as an exact answer. You will have a question or two on WebAssign that says leave as an exact answer. That means to leave it in radical form, because the square root of 41 is an exact answer, where if you do that in your calculator, it would not be an exact answer. So what I need to see from you is this. I need to see your setup. All right, these are my x's, these are my y's. This is the most important step, this first step, because if you get the coordinates wrong, if you put x's with y's, then the rest of the problem is wrong, so I can't give you guys any partial credit. But I can just say -6 minus 1. Some of you want to say 1 minus -6. Same thing, just keep your x's together. Then I'm going to write 5 and -1. And now we simplify. What's a -6 minus 1? -7 squared. Plus, what's 5 minus -1? Well, 5 plus 1 is 6 squared. Notice how I'm putting everything in parentheses? I think you guys should do that, because if you write it like this, I guarantee you some of you are going to say it's -49, and that is not the correct answer. You always will have positives underneath your square root. So I have -7 squared is 49, plus 6 squared is 36, and then you add 49 and 36, and you get the square root of 85. That is an exact answer. In the last problem, we had square root of 45, and Vega was telling us, oh, we can break it down into 9 and 5. You do have to see if you can break down the radical. The way that you would do that is like our little upside down division, or you can do prime factorization. 2 does not go into 85. 3 does not go into 85. 5 goes into 85. 17 times. Can I break down 5 or 17?
No.
So this is your exact answer. You will have to answer questions like that in WebAssign, and I'll show you how, but you're going to have to do it. All right, same thing with the next one. Just do the exact same thing every time, guys. Label your x's and your y's. Get your setup right. I know I have my x's. I'm going to subtract them and square them. Plus my y's. I'm going to subtract them and square them. So I'm going to put my x's in the first parenthesis. 10 minus 0 or 0 minus 10. Doesn't matter. Just keep them together. 3 and 4. 4 and 3. Doesn't matter. Just keep them together. And now we simplify. What is 10 minus 0? 10. So 10 squared. Plus, what's 3 minus 4? -1 squared. Remember, when you square a negative number, it becomes positive. So 10 squared is 100. Plus -1 squared is 1. So you get that the distance between these 2 points is the square root of 101. And that does not break down. That's your exact answer. Questions? Everybody's okay? All right. Let's look at number 3. Again, let's write our x's and our y's. We know what x is. We know what y is. Let's get our formula set up. I'm going to subtract the x's and square them. Subtract the y's and square them, and then add those together. So my x's, I'm going to write -2 and 5. And then for y, I'm going to do -3 and 7. Again, you can do it the opposite way if you want to. Just as long as you keep x's together and y's together. So -2 minus 5 is -7. Plus -3 and -10 is -3 and -7 is -10. -7 squared is 49. -10 squared is 100. And I'm left with the square root of 149. And that does not break down either. You just keep it. All right, guys, we're moving along then to midpoint. Middle. Midpoint is the middle of a line segment. All right, so if I have a point here, and I have a point here, and I'm trying to find the middle, I'm going to take my 2x values, add them up, divide by 2. I'm going to take my 2y values, add them up, divide by 2. That is your midpoint formula. So if we're going to do it here, I want to find the midpoint. Again, set it up. Here's my x's, here's my y's. It does not matter the order, just as long as you keep x's together and y's together. So I'm going to say 17 plus 9 divided by 2, and 4 plus 3 divided by 2. What is 17 plus 9? 26. So you have 26 divided by 2, and then 7 divided by 2. And then look to see if you can simplify. If you want to simplify 7 over 2 into 3.5 or 3.5, that's fine. But I would not. I would just leave it as an improper fraction. But can you simplify 26 over 2? Yes or no? 13. So your midpoint would be at 13, comma, 7 over 2. That's it. Same thing for number 2. Here's my x's, here's my y's. So my midpoint, I take my x's and I add them together. So negative 4 plus 5, and then I divide by 2. I take my y's and I add them together. I get 6 plus negative 1, divide by 2. Negative 4 plus 5 is 1, so I have 1 over 2. And then 6 plus negative 1 is 5, so 5 over 2. And neither of those simplify to any nice pretty whole number, so you can just leave it. Just like that. Okay, so that's it. That's all we have for 1.1. I'll upload this video in a second. But what I would like you guys to do is keep your attention, please, towards